Dwyer, Director of Research for Bloomberg Intelligence. And I have with me our Head of Research Content, Tim Craighead. Bloomberg Intelligence is Bloomberg's investment research department covering 130 industries and 2,000 companies. Every year, one of the most exciting initiatives that we do is an initiative called the 50 Companies to Watch, which we do in conjunction with Bloomberg Business Week. And this year has been as exciting as any. Each year, what we do is we take or talk to our analysts and ask them to identify the 50 companies they think are going to be the most interesting companies. And in this case, it would be for 2022. We have a couple of criteria. One is we try to select most of the names from various Bloomberg Intelligence focus ideas. We also try to look at different factors that could make them really very interesting in 2022, such as interesting growth prospects, or a significant management change, or a restructuring of the company, or any type of new products, whether it's an industry product or a company product. Also, it's really important that we pay attention to the themes that are the talk of investors in the upcoming year. And in 2022, as in any year, there are many, many themes. This year, some of the themes we've paid attention to in our 50 companies to watch is the pandemic recovery. Obviously, that's on everybody's mind. Electric vehicles, which is a mega trend and will be for many years, and related to that, the green transition, or things like the digital transformation and what that's going to do in terms of how we use the internet and media in the future, which we're only partway through that significant trend as well. And then, of course, in 2021, China regulation became the forefront of everybody's mind. And that's an important one as well. And also in 2021, the metaverse became a major topic for everyone to discuss. So those are the types of themes we're going to be looking at. And Tim and I are going to hit on a few of those. And I'm going to let Tim kick off first on electric vehicles.
Indeed, it's going to be an exciting year, Dave, for electric vehicles. We think it's a watershed year potentially, with Tesla still growing, but being dethroned. And Tesla is not on our list, but Volkswagen is. You know, a lot of people think of it as a legacy, old-fashioned automaker, but they're ramping production in EVs very rapidly, and by the end of the year, may well overtake Tesla as the largest producer. At the same time, they've also got an opportunity to potentially IPO Porsche, which everybody knows is a great sports car brand, but it's also very active in EVs as well. Now, beyond Volkswagen, you can see on this chart, there's a number of companies that are expanding rapidly. And beyond Mike Dean's call on Volkswagen, Steve Mann's excited about NIO. He's our Asian auto analyst. And here we're looking at a smaller Chinese luxury maker. And the reason why 2022 is a big deal for them, it could be the year that they actually turn profitable as they continue to expand their production.
And, you know, Tim, I had no idea that Volkswagen was on track to overtake Tesla. That's just such a fascinating tidbit of information. You know, it also appears that our analysts have identified supply chain factors within the electronic vehicle industry. Can you talk about that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't have the EVs if you don't have the components. And a couple of these jump out to our analysts. Nidec is one. It's a parts maker, but in particular, the part that it makes is critical to EVs, and that's the traction motor called eDrive that's being used increasingly by automakers around the world. Similarly, there's another Asian company, SK Innovation, Korean company, that is in place to sort of transform itself from a traditional petrochemical company into the third largest EV battery manufacturer outside of China, as they continue to ramp up and expand their capacity and sign contracts around the globe. So there's quite a few things going on here from the standpoint of parts.
That's interesting, Tim. And, you know, and I want to make a point that, of course, electric vehicles are not the only sector driving the green recovery. And, you know, to that end, I would say Rob Barnett, our renewable energy analyst, has been commenting that First Solar will see double-digit demand growth for solar in 2022 and in 2023. You know, this obviously bodes really well for the largest U.S. panel maker. The company is investing aggressively at home and actually as well in India to more than double its manufacturing capacity. And to this point, revenue could surge by more than $1 billion in the next 2 years. So, just another part of, how the 50 companies to watch is identifying these various themes, so important, whether it's electric vehicles or the related or broader category of green recovery. Let me turn over to moving to the digital transformation. This is a theme that has been evolving for years, but it is far from over. And our analysts have identified a number of companies that will be impacted in 22 that they really want to note. Our analyst, Amin Bensed, is looking for Roku, who is the leading content publisher and provider of connected TV products and ad software. He's looking for them to top projections and approach a 50% annual sales expansion through 2023. Roku has access to troves of user data, and obviously data drives everything right now. And this data, is the data that advertisers will covet. And it's really immune to the changes on the sharing of consumer information that Google will be forced to introduce next year. Now we have a couple comments about, Google isn't as interesting in terms of set-top boxes as Roku. But I would point out that Mandeep Singh, our internet analyst, has also included Alphabet, which is Google's parent, on our 50 companies to watch list. This is driven by two segments in particular. First is YouTube's ad sales, which are on track to top $35 billion in 2022, and their cloud revenue, which is headed towards $25 billion as the company continues to diversify its sales exposure. Importantly to note, technology is such a big focus in this market today, and despite the fact that Google/Alphabet is such a large company, these critical segments in Google are huge and growing, well above Alphabet's tech peers.
Yeah, and Dave, I'd say that it's important to note that the digital transformation theme goes beyond internet and media. It also goes into finance, and here we've highlighted SoFi, which Julie Sherrill, our electronic finance analyst, covers, and she's excited about SoFi, which is the first U.S. online-only bank to have gone public. Because it really distinguishes itself with a very broad-based platform. It's not as big as some of the others. It is growing rapidly, and importantly, its app is really all-inclusive. Some of the traditional regular banking facilities, but also lending, which is quite important. And notably for this coming year, you could see the restart of student loan refinancing as a marketplace after 2 years of basically a payment freeze with COVID. So there's opportunities to really see its growth, which we're projecting at 50% a year, actually to exceed that. It's quite exciting. Now, I think we should shift gears one more time, Dave, and maybe talk about the biggest theme of them all as we think about 2022. In ways, it's the pandemic recovery. I mean, it's affecting all of us in so many ways. And the way to start that one, I think, is to think about the enabler of the pandemic recovery. And that's the pharmaceutical industry with vaccines. And Pfizer is a big deal for us here because we all know it for sure. We know it's about vaccines, but Sam Fazeli, our pharma analyst, is of the view that boosters plus antiviral pills are still really underappreciated by the marketplace. This could add $40 to $80 billion of revenue for Pfizer, and is quite critical in the overall evolution of how we get back to a new normal.
Yeah, Tim, I think this leads us to looking at the potential for the post-pandemic travel recovery. That's something that has really been a struggle for many years. And three names that our analysts are looking for as a potential beneficiary of a travel recovery post the pandemic First would be Airbnb, which is also covered by Mandeep Singh, who I mentioned earlier, covers Google. He believes the market continues to underestimate the online travel service companies' brand advantage and the strength of its long-term stay business, which represents 20% of nights booked and is the fastest growing reservation category. Bookings could exceed analyst expectations by as much as $2 to $4 billion, 3 to 7% in 2022. And Airbnb's unmatched direct site traffic and repeat customers, that will really allow it to boost profits by cutting back marketing outlays. Second company I would mention, Angela Henley, our lodging and gaming analyst, is looking at Wazoo. That's the Chinese hotelier, to take advantage of the pandemic to increase its room supply by 25% and really positioning it for a swift rebound as the travel sector recovers. Operating profits for this company are on track to jump 70% in 2022 from 2019 pre-COVID as Wazoo expands its property holdings by 60% to 9,000 by year end. And then finally, Conroy Gaynor, who covers TUI out of our London office, notes that the European tour operators' COVID struggles could finally reverse by mid-year as vaccinated travelers ditch staycations. You may remember the time of Thomas Cook, but investors are awaiting signs that TUI isn't going to follow the Thomas Cook failure and that new equity is sufficient to cover the elevated debt. Turnaround hopes hinge on a restructuring meant to save £400 million a year, as well as technology upgrades and a focus on flexibility for travelers and premium resorts.
Well, Dave, we could keep going for a good while. As you introduced, we've got several other themes and a total of 50 companies here on this list, but we probably ought to bring it to a close here. Suffice to say, this is only the tip of the iceberg, though, within the context of the overall depth that we have, with company primers on each one of all of these companies, along with 2022 outlooks on the 130 industries and markets that we cover around the globe. So there's a vast resource there to go in more depth to help prepare for what hopefully will be a healthy and prosperous investment year and full year for all of us in 2022. And with that, we'd like to bring things to a close. And thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Tim.